Mauro Ffortissimo. Born in Argentina, immigrated to the U.S. in 1981. He's been living, working, and making art in San Francisco and the greater Bay Area since that time. Trained in classical piano, self-taught in painting and sculpting, he's worked in multiple media, including sheet metal, and most prominently, deconstructed piano assemblage. He also writes poetry and hosts a poetry and music salon at Specs Bar in North Beach, second Wednesday of each month. Mauro.
Yes, thank you. My name is Mauro Ffortissimo. My parents were born in Italy, in Milan, and in Abruzzo in the south. So I consider myself Italian. It's an old Roman law, up to 2 generations. No matter where you were born, you still citizen of the empire. I was born in Argentina. Together with my friend and partner, musician and filmmaker Dean Mermel, we host these events in San Francisco in the Botanical Gardens, in the Golden Gate Park. It's called Flower Piano. It usually happens in the month of July. We install 12 grand pianos for 12 days. Anybody can come and play the instruments. And on the weekends we have about 60 players to entertain. So that's what we do. What else? So if you want to know more, you could go onto Sunset Piano, the website of Flower Piano, the Botanical Garden. Next year we're going to celebrate our 5th year doing that. And if you'd like to know more about what I do, there's a documentary on Amazon Prime called 12 Pianos. I did an installation of 12 pianos from Pacifica to Santa Cruz a couple of years ago. And a lot of people came and played, and I was playing for whales. I took a piano in a boat, and I went to play for whales. So anyhow, the whales did come. It was in Photoshop. I'm going to give you a really super brief history of the piano. So what is the piano? Well, most of us know that the piano is an evolution from the harpsichord. The harpsichord was a keyboard instrument in the times of Mozart and Haydn, which it didn't matter how forte, loud, or soft you would press the keyboard. All it happened with the harpsichord was a plug that would plug the string. So it really didn't matter how soft or hard you play, you always have one volume. Around 1720, an Italian guy by the name of Bartolomeo Cristofori that was working at as an instrument maker for the Medici family where in Italy, somewhere in Florence. So he basically not sort of invented he removed the plug and put a felt hammer on a felt piece on the hammer. So now there was no more plugging any longer. So if you would play basically loud, forte, the hammer would hit the strings and produce a loud sound. And if you play piano, pianissimo, it would be soft, it would be softer. So that was kind of his invention, and that's, the pianoforte was invented. It took 20 or 30 years to get it going for the main reason that he couldn't figure how to make the hammer retrieve. So you play, and the hammer will hit the string and stay there until you lift your hands on the keyboard. 3 years on the road, a German guy by, what was his name, Gottlieb Silbermann, perfected that. It was called a quick release mechanism. So you press the keyboard, you go up 100 miles an hour. As soon as you play the note, the hammer comes back and allows you to play the next one. So that's the basic of how a piano functions. Of course, with the invention of, I mentioned the cast iron industry in England, early on when Beethoven was playing piano, the spins that hold the strings were into wood. So you couldn't pull the tension of the strings as much. Beethoven would play and the strings would play everywhere. With cast irons, we were able to have, steel on steel, and we could crank it to 440, which is how pianos are tuned now. The piano is the most sophisticated instrument in the Western culture, similar in tonal range to the Indian sarangi with 60 or 70 strings, or the African kora. However amazing the piano is, the very construction of the piano with its 12-tone keyboard, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, si, to me it's limiting for what I hear today sound-wise. So what I've done, I remove everything from a piano. The keyboard will be here, the action, which is called hammers, are here, it's gone. So I call it piano liberato, as a liberator from the 12-tone scale. A hammer will hit 3 strings to make a note. So now suddenly in a 12-tone scale, we have 36 strings in which I can produce microtonalities and things in between semitones. I use several tools. I use brass threads, brass hollow tubes, and the main ingredients is a fish line with a violin rosin that I powder and I put in my fingers so I could bore notes. With so much talking, I'm just going to play a bit and see if you like it. 60-pound fish line is the best. Any questions? Let me lower the volume.
Have you ever been engaged to do a movie? I think it would be really interesting.
Well, you know, it's funny that you asked that. In film, the timing, the frames, this is completely Ffortissimo. If it wasn't called Ffortissimo. So there's basically to frame it in for, no, it's not working. Unless you work with Buñuel or some really super avant-garde filmmaker. No, I have not. Everybody that listens to this, they ask, hey, you should do movies, scary movies, something. Not yet, anyhow.
Watch this space.
So this question actually is from Piero, who's
Okay.
now in China, but he tweeted his question. So how did you get the idea to deconstruct
Deconstruct the piano. You know, I played piano all my life. I studied when I could play for real, say, classical piano mostly. But I was never that good with fingering and memorizing and so forth. And I would hear other things, and I wanted to do more as a creative person with music. And I was kind of frustrated after studying piano for 15 years, how bad it was. So anyhow, one day I had an upright piano, and I removed the keys just to clean the keyboards. And I had a phone on top. In the old days, you had a big phone and you dial. And I was just talking to a friend of mine. I was sitting on the bed. There's a bed here. You could sit where the keys rest. Talking on the phone, and I started plucking. And I never put the piano back. And early on, I was a bit kind of violent. I used hammers, and I would break strings. I would damage the instrument. I go get me another piano. I went through a couple hundred pianos. Now it's in tune with another piano, so I do duets with classical players. I would play some Bach or Ravel, and I could follow with this. So it wasn't just something, a preconceived idea. It was coincidence, working with pianos.
So there are two more questions, pretty much like Sam, about the same. Like, what's wrong with playing the piano the regular way? And what does the piano have? What does the piano have that make you want to deconstruct it?
Because, well, you know, there's nothing wrong playing it the regular way. I mean, it feels really a concert playing. I mean, I was limited as a musician with my fingering, so that was what's wrong for me personally. I love the instrument. I love to look how things work. That's why I like electronic keyboards. You open it up and you don't see it, you know, and you see much inside. I love the mechanics of it. I love everything about the instrument. Pianos at the turn of the last century in the northeast of this country, there were over 550 makers. So there was a guild, there was a craft that involved carpenters and steel workers and all kinds of different trades, which unfortunately we lost. So to me, I mean, it just represents that, a lost time in a way, lost trade. Why do I take them apart? I make sculptures with the piano parts. So if there's a website or somewhere, you could see what I do with pianos. But the main reason actually, because I seen pianos being dumped thrown away, on dump site. Some of these pianos are 100 years old. The wood that we have in these pianos, the trees are no longer around anymore. So to me, it's a way, don't throw the piano away. Remove the key. See, if it costs you $10,000 to fix it, nobody's going to spend the money. Take the key away, take the hammers away, and it's a new instrument. So